Immersed Robot.
Hello everyone, welcome to Immersed Robot again. So in this video I'm going to talk about my very first impressions of the Reverb G2. So I picked one of these up off eBay, a used one. You can't really get hold of these in the UK at the moment new. They don't seem to be anywhere, and most of the ones on eBay are actually very expensive as well. But I managed to snag one for quite a good price. Because I just wanted to see what it was like. I consider it almost a rental. I'm not sure if I'll definitely be keeping it yet, because I've got a lot of experimenting to do with it and comparing it to the Valve Index. So this video, I've literally just set it up and come into Elite Dangerous. So this video is just going to be about my very first impressions, just a quick first impressions on this headset. But of course, as with any headset, you need to spend, a week or 2 weeks really getting to grips with it, getting to grips with all the nuances and that kind of stuff. So, take everything I say in this video with a pinch of salt, because I'm sure my impressions will change. But as initial impressions go, basically the first thing I will say is when I first put the headset on, it's sort of a failing of mine, I suppose. I tend to focus on the negatives more than the positives when I first put any headset on. And the first thing that struck me was, of course, the field of view reduction compared to the Index, which is something I went in knowing. I knew it was going to be a smaller field of view. Let's just enter Super Cruise. So yeah, the field of view, it was a little bit of a shock, even though I was expecting it to be smaller. It is smaller than the Valve Index, of course, but it also feels a little bit smaller than the Quest 2 to me as well, unfortunately. Very slightly, there's not a lot in it, but it's around there anyway. And I am just, sorry, there's a few stutters there. I'm just trying to locate what was going on with that. But yeah, so it feels more or less like the Quest 2, slightly smaller in my opinion, but it's different for everybody. I know that with field of view, it's a very personal thing depending on a lot of factors, really, face shape and just how deeply set your eyes are and things like that. So it's going to be different for everybody. But to me, the field of view is a thing. Now, of course, you can get a facial interface mod, which I have ordered. So hopefully next week I'll be able to give some more impressions on that, and hopefully that will resolve some of my field of view issues. And I will say that when I take this this default facial interface off and push my head into the headset then with my eyes pretty much as close to the lenses as they are in my Valve Index, then it's actually got a pretty reasonable field of view in that case. It's really this facial interface that comes as default, just seems to keep your eyes too far away from the lenses, unfortunately, and they probably do that because I don't believe it's got any adjustable eye relief in the headset, so it's for people with glasses and stuff like that, I guess. But yeah, the field of view was the first thing that hit me, and really, I suppose then I did go on to some of the positives. So the resolution is nothing to be sniffed at, I've got to say. The increase in resolution compared to the Index on what I'm playing here, and just very quickly, let me go into my settings just so you can see. I've got SteamVR super sampling set to 100% at the moment, and in-game graphics we've got to, let's have a quick look. So everything is set, so super sampling at 1.0 and the HMD image quality is at 1.0 as well. So everything's set to 100%, which is quite a high resolution actually, because this headset of course is 2160 by 2160 per eye, so it's pushing a few more pixels than the Valve Index at 100%, of course. But yeah, the resolution is impressive, I will say, especially in Elite Dangerous. So just looking at that, where it says mass locked, landing gear, cargo scoop, it looks a lot sharper than the Valve Index on 150% SteamVR super sampling, with around 1.25 HMD quality in this game. So it looks very nice. And you don't really realise, I knew there was going to be an increase in resolution, of course, but it's quite impressive, I've got to say. It's extremely impressive. And just looking out over to the front of the ship here, the Anaconda, normally in the Valve Index, with all of these little details on the ship, as I look around, I can see shimmering edges where I don't really have anti-aliasing, and you can see the pixel crawl on these edges. And on the HP Reverb, there is no pixel crawl. It's incredible. So it's really sharp edges, and everything looks incredible. So that is definitely a positive. And yeah, it's not really a subtle difference either. I was expecting more of a subtle difference than it actually turns out to be. So that is very impressive. The only thing that spoils it slightly is this sweet spot in the HMD, in the Reverb itself. So the sweet spot on these lenses is very small. It's probably the smallest sweet spot I've seen in any headset that I've used, and I've used quite a few. So yeah, it's got a very, if you get the headset adjusted just right, then you've got a very clear central view. But if you go off that even slightly, so right now I'm looking directly at that mass locked text just below the fuel gauge, and that's perfectly clear for me now. And then I only have to go off very slightly in either direction, and you get blur, which is an issue. And the other thing is I'm noticing a little bit of pupil swim. Now you could say, so pupil swim is sort of as you turn your head, you get like a distortion in the geometry slightly, and you usually get this if the headset is not adjusted correctly. You've not got it in the right position, your IPD is set wrong or something like that. Now I've just spent a few minutes trying to sort that out, and I think I've pretty much stopped the pupil swim from happening now. It doesn't look like it's happening anymore, but there's still no getting around that sweet spot. That sweet spot is very small, and it's a little bit disappointing, that side of things. It almost I mean, it doesn't negate the resolution bump at all, I shouldn't say that, but it's just a little bit of a dampening factor on this high resolution of the headset, when even if you turn your head even just very slightly, things go blurry. So you do really have to be looking directly at things to keep them in focus, perfect focus I should say. You can still read them, it's not like a sharp cut off or anything, but it's definitely there, and more so than in the index, which I think some people have complained the index having a small sweet spot as well, but it's slightly bigger than this one, I would say. Let's go down to a planet actually. Actually what I'll do, let me put on FPS VR, because that will be interesting, just to see how we're running things here. Okay, so I've got FPS VR running now, and on my current settings we're able to maintain 90 FPS, which is pretty good. Of course I'm in space, so you would expect to get pretty good frame rates in space. Oh, I should mention this is Horizons as well, so I'm not running Odyssey to test this today, which would probably affect frame rates quite significantly. And just to highlight a point that I was talking about earlier, looking even with FPS VR, this overlay which I've got locked to my headset just so you can see it clearly on screen in this video, even looking down at FPS VR, it doesn't look anywhere close as clear as it does in the index because of that sweet spot. It's got that, even that distance has got a blurring effect because it's just outside the sweet spot of my vision. Let's go down to a planet and we'll take a look, see what things look like down there. Okay, so just flying over to this planet now, which was the closest one to me that I could land on, and there is it looks great. Just looking at the detail on here as well, you can definitely see the difference in resolution when it's in the center of your view. It looks incredible. One of the things I always dislike about the index was the glare, and I think many people have mentioned that in the past. The glare in the index is an issue. You get like this movement of light, reflections around the edge of the lenses. I heard that this one actually has more of the God rays, which I would sort of call the more centralized sort of light that comes out from bright text on dark background. You get this centralized light which sort of beams out from the text, And the God rays in this, because I owned a CV1 which did suffer quite heavily from God rays really, and this isn't anywhere as bad as that, and you don't get that glare from the index as well, so a couple more positives there for this headset. So we've gone into 45 FPS reprojection now as we get close to the planet, which isn't entirely unexpected. Planets are far more demanding than the space areas, so I guess that's to be expected, and usually I don't mind that too much. Thing is, running at these higher resolutions, pushing this high resolution here, these things are going to happen, and I could probably dial things in to stop it from going into reprojection even at this resolution, but then you're sacrificing other things, of course. But I'm okay with reprojection in stations and on planets for the most part. I'd rather it be native FPS, but it's not always possible. And so a lot of people will actually undersample the reverb because it's so sharp, the resolution is so clear that you can probably stand a little bit of undersampling in order to get a more because we're only very slightly over the 11 milliseconds in order to get 90 FPS. So let me just go down. Actually, let me just fly a little bit more steady over the surface here, and then I'll go into options. Just quickly have a quick look at my graphical settings as well. I have got it set on custom graphical settings at the moment. So a few things, I've got model draw distance reasonably, well, sort of lower mid-level really. It's just, these are just my custom settings that I always play at, although I have turned the super sampling and HMD quality down to 1.0. But if we turn super sampling down to 0.85 and see what effect that has on frame rate. Yeah, so, you know, I can tell the difference. That 0.85 does make a difference, but it's not huge, and it's still far clearer than the index on 150% SteamVR super sampling and 1.0 super sampling in game with HMD quality of 1.25. So now we can run at 90 FPS pretty smoothly on planets. I'll leave it there in terms of testing this because I want to, you know, dive into this a lot more. There's a lot to look into with this, with it being a Windows mixed reality headset. How it handles frame rate can be a little bit different. But I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I want to mention very quickly on these first impressions. Colours look good. Yeah, the black levels probably... I actually thought the black levels looked really good when I first went in here. I'm just looking up now and it doesn't look quite as good as it was, but that might be, I don't know if this... Oh, it won't have an atmosphere anyway because it's horizons, but I was just wondering, because up there it doesn't look quite so good, but it might just be the planet type anyway, where I am. So I need to look into that a little bit more. But yeah, colours look vibrant, resolution is nothing to be sniffed at, looks fantastic. But yeah, field of view is a minus, hoping that the replacement facial interface that I'll get next week will resolve some of those issues, and that will probably also resolve some of the sweet spot issues as well, because the closer you can get to the lenses, getting some stuttering there, but the closer you can get to the lenses, then the bigger the sweet spot should be too, hopefully. But we'll see how that affects things like distortion and stuff like that, because that can be affected if you get too close to the lenses sometimes. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully that gave you some insights, my very initial reaction. Anyway, I was trying to keep this video as short as possible because I've got a lot to look into. I've literally just set it up and gone into Elite Dangerous, so you're getting a very raw reaction here. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Please consider picking up my science fiction virtual reality focused novel, The Memory Engine, a light-hearted tongue-in-cheek adventure through the metaverse, available on Amazon Kindle, paperback and as an Audible audiobook. Links in the description to this video.